President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi emphasizes the importance of achieving long-lasting peace in the region during phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump. The World Health Organization emphasizes a ceasefire is crucial for evacuating Gaza's injured and providing essential medical care. And U.S. President Donald Trump says he will speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin and believes they could reach a significant agreement. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has emphasized the importance of achieving long-lasting peace in the region during a phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump. President el-Sisi congratulated President Trump on his second term, expressing confidence in his leadership. El-Sisi also invited Trump to visit Egypt to strengthen bilateral relations and discuss the Middle East challenges, including the opening of the new Egyptian Museum. President Trump extended an invitation to el-Sisi to visit Washington, emphasizing the strategic ties between the two countries. The call also addressed regional issues, including the ceasefire in Gaza, which was brokered through Egyptian, Qatari, and U.S. mediation. Both leaders emphasized the importance of achieving long-lasting peace in the region. El-Sisi highlighted the need for a permanent solution to the ongoing conflicts and stressed that the international community is counting on President Trump's leadership in achieving peace. Both presidents agreed on the necessity of continued cooperation and communication between their countries to address shared challenges and strengthen bilateral relations. Cairo has hosted an Arab ministerial meeting to reject the displacement of Gaza residents. The meeting reflects Egypt's firm stance on Palestine, with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi emphasizing Egypt's rejection of forced displacement as a threat to national security. El-Sisi reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to a two-state solution and the historic rights of Palestinians, warning that international inaction could lead to further instability. Egypt is calling for unified Arab action to prevent forced displacement and uphold Palestinian sovereignty. The Egyptian Arab Joint Statement has emphasized the rejection of any violation of these inalienable rights of Palestinians, whether through settlement activities, displacement, home demolition, land annexation, or efforts to expel the inhabitants from their land through forced displacement. The Egyptian Arab Joint Statement reaffirms support for Palestinian resilience and rights under international law. It warns that actions threatening regional stability and peace undermine prospects for coexistence. The statement commends Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S. for securing the ceasefire and detainee exchange. It calls for Israel's full withdrawal from Gaza, opposes partitioning, advocates for Palestinian Authority control over Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, and urges international cooperation for Gaza's reconstruction. Egypt has begun receiving injured Palestinians through the Rafah border crossing for medical treatment in its hospitals. Al Qahira News correspondent reported that Egypt is preparing to admit 50 wounded individuals from Gaza, along with 53 accompanying relatives. With the ceasefire in effect, hospitals in North Sinai are ready. A medical team is stationed at Rafah, while Palestinian media confirmed that critically ill patients, including children with cancer and heart conditions, are en route for urgent care. Egypt stands firm against Palestinian displacement, reaffirming its unwavering commitment to justice, peace, and statehood. For more analysis, we now move to Mark in our newsroom.
Thank you very much, Selma. We are now joined from Cairo by the legal linguist and political analyst, Dr. Osama Ruslan. Thank you very much for being here with us on Q News. So Egypt, and in particular President el-Sisi, has emphasized maintaining Palestinian territorial integrity. How important is this for the region?
Thank you for having me, Mark. Of course, it bears every single weight of importance that you can imagine or think of. Of course, keeping the territorial integrity of the Palestinian territories despite the incessant Israeli aggression and violations and attempts at annexation of more Palestinian land, it is still the only solution to keep Palestinian cause, a standing Palestinian cause. Because any further violations would render it, the final solution, the only one viable solution, which is to have a Palestinian state, an independent Palestinian state. If we fail to observe this only possible viable solution, the whole region will always be washed out into unrelenting waves of violence, erupting every now and then. This would be detrimental to everyone, no matter how either party thinks that he is strong enough to defend himself or even to repel that wave of violence. Still, it will be detrimental to everyone. It's going to affect everyone.
And what are the key points from today's Egyptian-Arab joint statement, especially regarding Israel's withdrawal from Gaza?
Well, this is a very important issue because if we're going to see all phases of the ceasefire agreement through, if we're going to see them through, then everything should be in place, including the full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. No military presence, Israeli military presence should ever remain in Gaza. No buffer zones should ever be taken away from the existing borders of the Gaza Strip. Otherwise, there will always be a room for on and off clashes, which again will set the two parties of the ceasefire agreement on a collision course endlessly. So this is, I believe, the most important issue is to see through the whole ceasefire agreement, including, most notably, of course, and most importantly, the full Israeli withdrawal, And of course, comes or follows from this is the full exchange of detainees and prisoners according to the ceasefire agreement.
And how important is Egypt when it comes to humanitarian efforts? Of course, the situation at the Rafah border, I'm thinking of in particular.
Yeah, sure. The Egyptian role for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict actually is irreplaceable, and it cannot be underestimated. For the only functioning border crossing now with Gaza is the Gaza-Egypt Rafah crossing. There are 6 other crossings between Gaza and Israel, but Israel, as usual, is not willing to fulfill its international obligations under international law. So the only room there for providing assistance, humanitarian aid, and receiving the injured and the patients who are in dire need of medical treatment is through the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. Egypt has provided more than 70% of the total humanitarian assistance and aid delivered to Gaza. Since the start of the ceasefire agreement, Egypt has managed to send more than 2,000 trucks full of thousands of tons of assistance and aid, humanitarian aid to Gazans inside Gaza. And we have already started to receive those in dire need of medical treatment. Particularly today, Egypt has received already 50 Palestinians, many of them are children, to receive medical aid, medical treatment in Egypt. And by the way, there should have been 400 of them to be received today, but the Israelis only cleared 50 of them, according to the list provided by the health authorities in Gaza.
And Egypt, of course, has spoken out very, very strongly against any forced displacement of the people of Gaza. How has the international community responded to this?
Well, I believe the start of the positive response has been shown today by the grouping of the Arab states, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, and Egypt, and the Secretary General of the Arab League. They had a meeting in Cairo and delivered a very strong statement. The communique was of that meeting really emphasized the very stance that Egypt has been adopting for the last months, 15 months, throughout the months of that Israeli aggression, and genocidal military efforts against Palestinians in Gaza. Of course, it insisted on a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. No annexation of Palestinian territories is acceptable. There should be a full implementation of the ceasefire agreement. In addition to all other articles within the ceasefire agreement, they all should be enforced so everyone can see a phase after phase coming into force up to hopefully reaching a final and permanent fair solution to the conflict. And this was the topic of the phone call a few hours ago between the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the U.S. President Donald Trump.
And Dr. Ruslan, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about Egypt's stance regarding the forced displacement of Gaza residents, and perhaps you could put it into a historical context for us.
Yes, sure. Well, actually, this idea of forced displacement of Palestinians in general and Gazans in particular appeared since the 1950s. The first one to come up with the idea was John Foster Dulles, the then U.S. Secretary of State. The man had the idea proposed back then, and he passed the idea to the Israelis. The Israelis kept trying to see it through for the following decades and up till this very moment. There have been so many attempts by the Israelis, and particularly the strongest Among them used to be during the or after the Six-Day War between Egypt and Israel in 1967. Sinai remained under Israeli occupation for like 6 years. They have tried their best to do that, but they were received by strong resistance by Palestinians and by Egyptian nationals inhabiting Sinai. So this is not new to the U.S. Political thought. This is not new to the Israeli ambitious expansionist policies. But again, Egypt has always resisted this. It will forever resist it. Egyptian lands are for Egyptians.
Now, of course, Egypt has reaffirmed its commitment to the two-state solution. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has almost been sounding like what he is looking for is a one-state solution. And by that I mean Israel and the Palestinians moving into Egypt and into Jordan. How important is it that the international community get behind Egypt and Jordan with that commitment to a two-state solution?
Well, President Trump, in his inauguration speech, said that he wants to be remembered for the peace he would make worldwide. So I hope that he will be able to honor that commitment because history is watching. History is in the making. So you cannot be a president. You want to go down in history in brilliant terms and brilliant lines while you're committing war crimes. Forced displacement, after all, is a war crime. And, one thing that I really get astonished at is that when reporters are talking to President Trump, asking him about the Egyptian and Jordanian stances that reject that kind of plan for forced displacement, he said they will do it, or whatever he said. I believe the phone call between him and President Sisi a few hours ago was more positive, much more positive than that stance. But what astonishes me is that reporters keep asking about things that they know for sure that these account for war crimes, but they don't think about it as if Palestinians are movable objects. They're going to be moved whenever they are ordered to, or whenever a decision is taken in that regard. No, Egypt has its firm stance. No forced displacement will be ever tolerated, not at the expense of Egypt, not at the expense of Jordan, not at the expense of the Palestinian cause. We're talking about a people who has the full right to self-determination, full right to an independent state. Only a permanent viable solution is to have, the only permanent viable solution is to have a two-state living side by side in peace. Any other solution at the expense of either side will only result in further waves of violence.
And looking ahead, of course, one of the phases of the ceasefire agreement, which we all hope to get to, is Gaza's reconstruction. How important is the international collaboration when it comes to reconstruction of Gaza? How much would you think that might cost? And what might Egypt's role be?
Well, Egypt has already proceeded with whatever it can. I wouldn't say for reconstruction efforts, but at least to ease the tensions of everyday life for Palestinians in Gaza through sending humanitarian aid and providing certain, I would say, simple services, including healthcare and even paving certain roads or so, to ease their everyday movement in Gaza. But the international community has to assume its role. It would be indispensable for everyone to have a hand in this. No one single country can handle the magnitude of the effort and the cost that would be involved in the reconstruction of Gaza. But before that, everyone should be assured that no other wave of violence or genocidal military campaigns would be waged, because that would be a waste of money, because donors and international community players actors in the international arena keep asking this. Now, for the nth time, we're going to provide money and provide efforts for the reconstruction of Gaza. But to what end? Just to have this all blown away within the next wave of violence? So there should be a viable solution, a permanent solution, enough with those provisional terms that ensure nobody any security or peace of mind.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News, Dr. Osama Raslan, a legal linguist and political analyst. Thanks for being here with us. And it's back to you, Selma.
Thank you so much, Mark, for conducting this interest analysis. Egypt reaffirms its unwavering support for Palestine, receiving over 100 Palestinians from Gaza and demonstrating firm opposition to forced displacement.
Egypt remains firm and steadfast in its support for Palestine, consistently championing the Palestinian cause on the global stage. Today, Egypt received over 100 Palestinians from the Gaza Strip through the Rafah border crossing, including 50 injured individuals and 8 set to be deported from Palestinian territories. In response, Egyptian ambulances were stationed at the Rafah crossing to transport the injured and sick from the besieged Gaza Strip to medical facilities in Egypt. Earlier, thousands of Egyptians gathered near the Rafah border in a powerful show of opposition to the displacement of Palestinians. Led by politicians, parliamentarians, and political parties, the demonstration underscored Egypt's unwavering commitment to the Palestinian cause. Waving Egyptian and Palestinian flags, protesters from all walks of life voiced their strong support for President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's rejection of U.S. proposals to relocate Palestinians from their homeland. Chanting slogans at the Rafah crossing, demonstrators condemned any attempts to forcibly displace Palestinians, warning that such actions would destabilize the region. Their message echoed President al-Sisi's recent statement, in which he forcefully rejected displacement schemes and reaffirmed that the only viable solution is a two-state framework based on the 1967 borders in line with international law. As tensions escalate, Egypt's position remains firm. Forced displacement is not a solution. Instead, Egyptian officials stressed the urgent need for a comprehensive political resolution that respects Palestinian self-determination and paves the way for long-term regional stability. As a regional leader, Egypt continues to play a pivotal role in advocating for Palestinian rights and pursuing peace through diplomatic channels.
The World Health Organization spokesperson has emphasized that the ceasefire is crucial for evacuating Gaza's injured and providing essential medical care. World Health Organization spokesperson added that efforts are underway to rescue those trapped under the rubble despite difficult conditions. Northern Gaza is severely affected, with half of its hospitals only partially functional. The spokesperson stressed UNRWA's crucial role, the urgent need for uninterrupted aid flow, and international responsibility in supporting Gaza's health sector, medical facilities, and humanitarian relief efforts. House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has announced that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be in Washington next Tuesday, February 4th. The meeting is set to take place amid a fragile 6-week ceasefire that has brought a temporary pause to 15 months of fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Earlier this week, Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, made a rare trip to Gaza and also met with Netanyahu.
Visit. Sure. Daniel. Thank you, Caroline. You're welcome.
Moving on to the United States, where President Donald Trump has said that he will speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin and believes that they may reach a significant agreement. Trump made the comments to reporters in the White House Oval Office but did not elaborate. He also stated that Washington is engaged in serious discussions with Moscow.
Ongoing, already scheduled.
U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that all federal employees are replaceable. Speaking at a press conference from the White House Oval Office, he warned that those who do not return to in-person work risk losing their jobs, emphasizing an end to remote work.
And they're a part of the many different ways that agencies protect the public.
Philadelphia Mayor Terrell Parker has urged residents near the plane crash to stay indoors. The Federal Aviation Administration said the crash took place around 6:30 p.m. Local media reported that it was near the Roosevelt Mall in northeast Philadelphia. The crash follows this week's collision between an American Airlines jet and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter over Washington, D.C., which killed 67 people in the deadliest airplane crash in the U.S. since 2009.
Asking for prayers for any and everyone who may have been affected. We do want to note that
This brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we've been covering. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi emphasizes the importance of achieving long-lasting peace in the region during a phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump. The World Health Organization emphasizes a ceasefire is crucial for evacuating Gaza's injured and providing essential medical care. And U.S. President Donald Trump says he will speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin and believes that they could reach a significant agreement. This concludes our news bulletin for tonight. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.